Hi everybody, this is Sherry. I'm the co-founder of Peak. We're an AI-powered platform that helps you track, manage, and grow your net worth. And today I'm very excited to have Joe here, co-founder of Haymax. He is joining as part of a conversation that I record with different fintech founders called Fintech Founder Series. Joe, thanks for doing this with me today. I would love to get a bit of an introduction on what is Haymax and what problem are you guys solving within personal finance?
Yeah, so we're right now the reward app that help you get a free vacations every year, preferably in premium class. So we help you gather all the advertising dollars that's spent on you by the brands on Facebook, Google, etc. So instead of the money goes to the big techs, the money goes to you in a format of MaxMiles, a loyalty currency that we run. It's the most well-connected loyalty currency probably in the world. 27 airlines and hotels. So all brands fund your MaxMiles wallet, and then you can use it for your future vacations. So that's essentially what we do.
Very cool. Well, I think everybody likes to have a free vacation here and there. We all deserve a treat, right? But where did you actually get the idea for Haymax? Like, this is something that you faced yourself as a problem.
Yeah, it all started when I was in US as an international student. I fly back to Asia every year or so. I think in the beginning it was just very normal, right? You look at the calendar, whichever the flight schedule, whichever is the cheapest, right? Whichever is the most sensible, you book it. You go on a trip, right? Go see your family. So for me, at some point, I think the turning point was one time I was not able to fly. I had to delay till the next day because they wouldn't let me check in after me waiting in line, check in for almost an hour, just being told that, because the wait is so long, they couldn't check in my baggage because I didn't have any status, right? People with status all go into the fast lane, and also, so for me, I'm gonna name drop, it's United Airlines. Right? Later, I was like their tier 1 status for a few years after flying a lot through them. But that gave me the determination that, hey, I don't want to lose this game. I don't want to be a victim in this game where I always get the short end of the straw. So I started collecting miles. I figured out how to get airline status, and being an engineer, I'm both greedy and lazy, right? So that supposedly makes a good engineer, right? So you're being greedy and lazy, so trying to figure out automations, trying to figure out what's the least amount of effort I need to put in order to get the most out of it. So that started my miles journey fast track to now. I have, I think, almost like 50 credit cards in a wallet that I still keep track of in my spreadsheet, and create a company to almost initially just trying to solve some of the problem that I personally have.
Yeah, and so you actually do this in Google Sheets and not a separate tool?
No, before Haymax, there were some tools here and there that I use. I use wallets to keep track of the 30, 40 different airline hotel points program that I have. But just to keep track of credit card, what it's good for, what it's not good for, and especially I now track it across Singapore and US cards, a little bit like international cards also. Now there's a lot of multi-currency cards out there. It's getting way out of hand, right? So I'm really big proponents of figuring out like us building tools for simplifying personal finance, make it more trackable, make it least amount and less effort in a world where I think also I strongly believe that there will be a proliferation of more and more fintech tools, right? It's much easier now for anyone to issue a card, to create a wallet, right? Which means there will be more, and then I cannot imagine how my personal finance could be even busier with more than 50 accounts already.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of a little bit the problem that we're trying to solve as well with Peak, but instead of rewards programs and miles, it's actually around investments, right? There are people that have sometimes 40 different bank account, credit cards, investment accounts, and crypto wallets to follow, and it becomes really chaotic. I mean, choice is great, but then also managing all of that becomes really complicated. So obviously 50 credit cards is a lot, right, to be able to manage. If somebody is, I would say, newer in their miles journey, right, what would you suggest for them to get started, right? What are the first maybe kind of cards they should consider depending on like what their spending habits are and what their goals are, and what are like forums that they can potentially follow?
Yeah, I think before even getting started, I actually want to take a rational step to assess whether you should you even care about like points and miles at all. Because if you don't travel, like I think the sweet spot going beyond is that you at least travel like once every quarter or so. I mean, just in Singapore context, right? In Singapore context, I think people go out quite often, and once a quarter. This is both for pleasure and business. Then I think it becomes quite important that you get the basic travel perks, all right? So that whenever you travel 4 times a year, not as stressful, and you're able to find some more interesting travel destinations and interesting way of travel to make it memorable, make it less, less like a hassle, more like a life experience that you can remember every now and then. So I think that basic amount of travel demand, both from personal and business travel, I think is the base layer. And then on top of it, then sure, yeah, everyone has a lot to spend. And when you spend, for example, banks want to, or card issuers in general want to make sure that you spend with their cards, right? So they will give you some incentive to be able to use their cards as top of wallet when you go, especially when you go overseas. They want you to use their foreign transaction card. So that layer of money that came from interchange or came from car issuer related expenses, so that can be the rewards that you can take in, like easy. And then on top of it, when you book travel, for example, with hotel or airlines, or even sometimes OTAs, they pay for your loyalty. So there's some level of rewards that you can gather from the flights that you're taking or the hotel you're staying to. Then on third, that on your day-to-day spend, every brand right now, especially now of digital advertising, everyone wants to buy your business, right? They want to advertise to you for you to either open up an account or buying something more from them, increase your ticket size. They like all the brands around you, whether they're Apple or Shopee, Amazon, or even like sometimes B2B brands like Air Wallets. More recently, in our example, they're willing to fund customers in the format that they care about, like really to speak your language. So that's another source, like advertising, that can also be our personal kind of little wallet to fund our future vacations. So that's also something to watch out for. So really these three buckets, money from car issuers, money from the travel partners that they give directly for loyalty, or money from advertisers in general at large, they all can pull together to be your future rewards, right? That's kind of the miles game explained in more business formats.
Yeah. And within your business, right? Could you explain what MaxMiles are? I mean, that's something that's a bit unique.
Yeah, so MaxMiles is the first currency. I think I have studied a lot of currencies and personally use a lot of like airline currency in the format of miles or hotel points. So I think the interesting thing is that MaxMiles is the first currency that's created for consumer purposes. It's not created for business. I'll explain a little bit why, right? So when you think about if you're a hotel, like if I'm a hotel or I'm an airline or even I'm a coffee shop, generally when I think about a loyalty program, I'm generally thinking about a business goal, right? I'm thinking about like, oh, I want to increase customer retention or I want to increase repeat transaction. That's why we want to think about, okay, loyalty currency or loyalty program seems to be a reasonable way to achieve that. So the immediate goal or the ultimate goal that these efforts are created generally for business purposes.
Right.
And then you figure out, how much should I give? How many miles should I give? How much should I price the miles so that customers will find it engaging, useful, and willing to participate in this, right? And then a certain portion of them find it useful and participate in this will make my program valid. So that I think generally is how Miles program gets created. For us, it's a bit different. We initially created it as a credit card kind of optimization tool for people to figure out among so many credit cards, which is the best credit card to use anywhere. Like everywhere you go, you can find out for this restaurant, I should use this credit card. For that like department store, I should use the other credit card. Right? So that used to be a problem that it's just kind of annoying. It's not the hardest problem in the world. It's just annoying to remember many things, and the complexity is increasing. We didn't have a need for loyalty currency at the time, but as more customers come on, they ask us, hey, we really like miles. Can we get more miles? So we were just trying to think really hard. How can we give people more airline miles or hotel points? That's when we landed on thinking about maybe we should create our own currency, but instead of making it very hard for people to redeem or specifically try drive the business go, what we did was we're trying to partner with as many airlines and hotels as physically can, and then make it such that it doesn't expire. It transferred to right now I think 27 airlines and hotel, almost 28 next week, and you do not kind of worry about its expiration. It's not devaluating because it's always 1-to-1 transfer ratio to nearly every one of them, and including some of the very rare currencies that allow transfer in the world. So it's fully aligned with consumer interest. And then, so that from that end it's pretty rare.
I think that's very cool. Being able to kind of look at a loyalty program from the consumer's perspective. And I also think the other part that I like about the way that you and your co-founders take approaches in building is being very, very consumer and community focused. So you guys started out with a Telegram group, right? And still are running it with your Haymax users.
Yeah, right. I actually want to dispel the myth. Like, we're actually not that thoughtful about this. It's not like it's not that we are like we're gonna be like, oh, we're so much like a great person, a great founder, so we're gonna be consumer first. No. Actually, it was more like we think we don't really know anything, and then the only way that we can convince each other of doing something and invest in it is by having some customers vouch it, right? Vouch for it. Say like, hey, this feature is useful, so let's then we can convince the whole founding team. Initially, now it's like a bigger team, more than 10 people now, that wanted to build against a certain goal. So for us, being connected with the customers is more of a risk management, if you may, right? In a very practical manner, is that we don't really trust each other's judgment out of thin air, right? It's more like, okay, can you like show some quick results from just directly talking to user, and what's a better way to talk to user by having a bunch of them in a group that can always give us feedback directly. So it becomes more of a very practically a risk mitigation tool. So like if you're building anything new, so instead of saying I'm going to invest like a few weeks of doing research, right, trying to create prototype, for us it's like, well, I can type a question in the Telegram group today and get some very clear indicative results on like, do people use this product? Do people care about that brand? If we did this feature, would there be any traction at all? Like it made it into like a matter of like minutes or hours of doing this kind of research rather than days or weeks.
Yeah. Were there any features or problems or pain points that the community mentioned that like you guys didn't actually think about before that you just learned from having this kind of close connection?
Oh yeah. I think before we have this group, we didn't actually I think you have to put it into a context how we get started. Like 4 of our co-founders, I'm the only person initially that was like into points and miles. So it was actually very hard to. Our initial goal is really just trying to build some sort of intelligence for money. Money is hard to track, hard to figure out, how to make decisions. Can we like build some sort of general intelligence? Right?
I see.
It was like in the very beginning, how we kind of get like, or how my co-founders get I con them kind of into a points and miles thing. It was more like, okay, the only thing we know, like instead of thinking about big ideas, the only thing we know is that we can get a bunch of users, we can tell us some smaller features that will get adoption, and then build on top of it that we have more confidence. So happened to be in the case where I was like just being this like greedy mouse nerd for a long time. So like, okay, I know something that people might want, right? That we'll gather them together, ask them, hey, if we build a tool, would build a search tool for you to figure out which credit card to use where, would that be useful? So they gave us a lot, the people who we gathered gave us a lot of input on how they would use it and what would be like all the nuances around it. So give us like initial confidence to actually build it initially. The cost is not that high. It was like a month, like a few weeks or a month of work, but that grew from there. Then people come in to say like, it's cool, but I still keep track of all my credit card expenses to like figure out these like, $1,000 spending cap this month for this credit card. And keep track of every entries in a spreadsheet I enter manually. I was like, then give us thinking that, I actually did this is a good example where I wasn't that convinced, but my team was able to use some user study through the group, directly convince the whole company, said, hey, we should invest in this to help people keep track of this, because so many people are actually directly telling us that they're using spreadsheet for it. Right? These are, you have hunches, like some people must be using spreadsheet for this, but until like we actually go to the customer and discuss, you don't know how big the problem is.
For sure. Big in terms of scope as well as like the amount of pain somebody goes through. I love a few things about what you said. I think number one is that in a founding team, I actually think it's good to have one person who's like the aficionado, the geek about the topic, and then the other people who are skeptics, because I think that back and forth is really good, because you'll have like, I would say pretty good product intuition, right? Because you've been a type of user, but then you might not be representative of everybody else, right? So I think that's where some of the questioning from your co-founders or from your team is really helpful. And then you have a community that you immediately access for what you call risk mitigation, which I think is just validation, right? It's like making sure that like Joe Lou's problem is not just Joe Lou's problem. It's something that other people care about and feel to a point where it makes sense to build a feature, right? So that's super cool, and I think that's generally a great way to build products too. Don't assume that you like have this amazing concept, like grand idea that you're absolutely right. Kind of start from a place of I have a hunch, and let's just like kind of build, along the way, and get to a cohesive product at some point that makes a lot of sense. That's super compelling. I also liked how you talked about your 4 co-founders, right? How is it like actually having a team of 4 people, all actually from Meta, right? In a lot of cases when you study startups, you have solo founders, you have 2-person teams. Once in a while, you get larger teams, but I'm wondering like how did you all come together, and what are the benefits as well as challenges with having 4 co-founders come together?
Yeah, so we banded together. That was pretty simple, because we are on the same team that we used to work together, and then our global organization was the first part being axed during the first wave of layoffs at Meta. And Meta kind of kicked off this global wave, like it was October 2022, I think. So it was almost 2 years ago. We were used to work together. We already had kind of developed each other's habits, like how it works together, and they're like some of the best tech leads that I've ever worked with. So I think it goes back to the original, how the company got started. Actually, when the layoff happened, I was like vacationing in Japan. Suddenly people like texting me, are you okay? I was like, what the hell?
You're like, I don't know what's going on.
Tell me, am I okay? Like, I don't know.
Am I supposed to be okay?
So I basically like learned about layoff from the news, because like the first impression was like, why is these ex-Meta people, like a lot of us my old friend, right? Because then they already not at Meta anymore. So when they saw the news, they text me, right? Because they don't have any way to check whether I'm like part of the layoff or not. So then I quickly searched the news and realized, okay, it's happening. I'm guessing, I don't know, like then, you go through the interesting cycle of then checking like internal access, like have some, but not the other. I was like, okay, So I guess this applies to me then. So my initial action was wanted to take a 6-month break or like a year break, because after working for 10 years, I've never really taken a long break. So like, oh, okay, that would be cool. But then I thought, actually doing that trip in Japan, it was like, wow, all these great engineers that I've ever worked with, some of the best engineers I've ever worked with, now looking for a job in the shitty economy, the like absolutely crap job market.
Yeah.
And then like if you start a company now, you don't have to convince them to quit their job, like high paying job. These people are gonna get a high paying job in any time other than now, right? Because how the fearful market, how the bear market works. Wow, such a black swan event. It will be such a waste if I don't start a company now and just lost all these opportunities. And I thought I couldn't convince myself otherwise, so I thought, okay, fine, start a company. And luckily, one thing that I think I was very lucky in was when I was in Meta, I was able to work on 2 side projects on the side. Both went to market. Both actually didn't quit at the end to start full time, mostly because actually co-founders always had like who moves first, right? Who's like have more stake in it, quit first. Like, a lot of it has great merits in these projects, but didn't go through because co-founder issues. So then I think I intuitively know that, okay, the value I can add to the market or to this group is to start something first and then let people who really are into it kind of filter themselves in. So I'm lucky to start off with a few very strong people, and then I think not a secret, but I would publicly been saying it. I was actually initially thinking, why do we have 4 co-founders? Because I thought like 2 of them will quit by now. By 1 year in, like 2 of them would have quit.
Were you thinking like, you know what? Let's start out with 4 people and like just hedge the bets a little bit, and maybe 2 will be. That's a very practical way to think about it.
Not hedge the bets per se, right? But actually, we openly talk about it in the beginning. Is that we don't know what we don't know. Like, for example, if someone's never been in a startup environment before, which I think most of our other co-founders never been, even on the side job kind of capacity. So like most of us, like we're engineers, so we try to be more pessimistic. So we don't know very much. Like 6 months in, we could have most likely would have failed anyway, right? And then we can revisit it in 6 months, see if like you're into it or not. Right now, it's such an unpredictable thing. Where is any of us a good potential for being a startup founder? No. The only thing we know is that we can experiment now and see what happens in 6 months. So that's how we reached alignment to get started, and then. Yeah, who knows? 2 years in, everyone's around.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a healthy way to approach things, right? I like how you're like, look, even with the product, you don't know quite if it's going to work out. You have these experiments along the way and learn as you go. I think that's the same thing with like being a first-time founder as well, right? You might think that this is something that you want to do or something that's interesting to you, but until you go through the motions of like the day in and day out, like you don't for sure know, or for sure know that this is the right co-founding setup too, right? Yeah. So I think that's a healthy way to approach it. And what do you think have there been challenges with like having 4 people, like with decision making, or is it pretty, straightforward, like where scope of work is? And you all are engineers as well, which is quite interesting, right? Because it's not like here's a operations person, here's a finance person, here's a marketing person, here's an engineer.
Yeah. So our initial setups, I think when we left Facebook, I was an engineering manager. 2 were tech leads. 1 is a data engineer lead. So there are a little bit of a distribution of responsibilities, but it wasn't very clear. I think I now realize my strengths more in business development and partnership. So it kind of like initially forced us to starting to take a little bit different role. There had definitely been challenges. At some point, we're thinking like everyone should be doing BD, right? Because we're engineers trying to like solve problems. Nobody's really looking at business development that holistically. and we've gone through a lot of these cycles, swing back and forth, like all in and building, all in and talking to customers. But luckily, I think this is a key learning if anyone's taking away anything from this experience. Is the one thing that really hold us together and back to the roots and be like super grounded is the group of customers that we have.
Yeah.
Like however small, like in the beginning, like dozens of people, and then hundreds of people, thousands of people. Right now, I think in the Telegram group we have like 7,000.
It's a ton of. I've been in it before. Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually is like hold us really grounded.
Right.
For example, whenever we like in the beginning when we don't know we should launch this or not, like some people told us they will use it, so it's like fine, at least we know some people are using it. So that's how we reached the agreement to say launch this, because unless you have another very compelling, when you don't have users, I guess there's not very good measurement to say what is good, what is not. Then when you have a little bit of user, at least you can use number of users who will use it. You have a different compelling idea, great, find a few users that will use it, then we talk, right? So otherwise we can keep on iterating based on some more solid evidence of potential traction. So we solve some of the problem that way, but it's not very easy. I think especially with engineers, we tend to be more skeptical.
Very data oriented, right? It's like I need to see some of the numbers.
Yeah.
And you think about why this could be wrong, right?
Yeah, and then in startup world, like so little data, right? A lot of it is conviction based.
Yeah.
But like almost like zero trust or zero conviction. We can almost hold a zero conviction kind of like contract with each other. It's like no conviction, only like results. But results kick in after a while. It's not immediate, so some conviction is still needed. But prior working experience as a team definitely helped.
Yeah. You have a base to kind of go off of, and if there's any times where you have debates or anything, at least you have that trust that you can ultimately rely on, which is I think sometimes much harder if you're very new to a co-founding relationship with somebody. Like this part I don't have a lot of experience in, right? Because I think we got lucky that whenever the decision or the heat of these decisions argument are generally about direction, it's not about guessing anyone's intent. That will be really hard. I would imagine we were super lucky that way, that we never really had to second guess a lot of like intent, but mostly just focus on the user problems. Yeah, absolutely. So what is next for you all? Like what's the big item on the roadmap, or maybe not big item on the roadmap, but the next small experiment that you want to iterate and grow?
Yeah, I think more recently we found that the idea about rewarding customers. So we were figuring out this new way of advertising where instead of a very transactional, you buy something so you will get something out of it, to something more like brands will advertise goodwill, advertise people for their day-to-day very common items, to basically as a consumer you can say that, hey, I only get advertised to by being paid for it. It's quite a new way of thinking, but I think there are some execution in the long past, like internet history, that look at ads, they give you some point. So there have always been some experiments like that, but never really achieve a certain scale. Now I think we had experience with the brands already interested in doing this with us, where we think that giving people more well-aligned incentive for being advertised to and being happily advertised to, and feel that they are in control of their data sharing, their rewards that they're getting, and so it becomes a very synergetic system. So we're doubling down on this by working out on a really big public transit-based campaigns in November. So we're looking at giving people like, what if people are getting 100 miles per day from just taking MRTs? What would it be like? That will change people's behavior quite a lot, for the good, for the better. But also, it gets a lot more advertising value right, exchange in this mix. So that's quite interesting to me.
Very cool. I have one last question before wrapping this up. I always like to ask people about advice for founders, but I have a very specific one that I want to ask you about traveling, right? Because I saw recently that you had this LinkedIn post that I think got pretty popular, right? About how many people think founders should be like very bare bones with everything and not travel business or anything like that. But you found a way to be able to do that. Do you have any tips for founders around how to cost effectively be able to do business travel stress-free so you can focus on the business meeting? Yeah,
so I think this is an amazing question because I actually didn't imagine that this topic could be to kind of resonate with so many people, but I think it was experimenting, figuring out the red line a bit, how much I can flex on our investors. So can I do something kind of
but it's kind of your business though, right? Hey, you can do these things while not spending as much as you think you have to.
Yeah, right? But I think to fully qualify this, I mean, I have years of experience accumulating points, making it so easy, so I'm actually not spending extra time on it. But every time I do travel, I'm trying to, I think the most recent trip is a Singapore Fintech Association mission trip to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to explore potential expansions. I'm naturally very curious about the country because I've never been to Saudi Arabia, but hearing a lot about it, so I thought it was better to do than going into their bank, their regulators, to see what they're thinking, what they're talking about, what's the sentiment on the ground, what does the air smell like. So we just went. But I think the choice is if I don't have any choice what to do, obviously I will just book for the cheapest flight. But the cheapest flight means that in order to land, be in a meeting, ready, right, to actually participate, then I need to travel, for example, if Sunday meeting happened in the Sunday morning, 10 a.m., I need to travel a day before because I need to go to sleep, go to a hotel, sleep. So I spend an extra night at the hotel, but also I would have been missing one day of engagement with my family, which for me, I have a 3-year-old daughter. That's kind of my energy source. So for me, it's super important. I don't want to give it up. What's the trade-off? What if I can fly overnight, sleep on the plane, and actually go to a meeting super ready? So that's exactly what I did, finding the most reasonable award redemption. So instead of spending $3,000 on the flight, I've spent maybe total, I think points adjusted, just over $1,000 or something on it, right? And I'm not fully reimbursed my company for it because I'm now making it into a very interesting, I made a LinkedIn post out of it, which is an Emirates first class flight from Singapore to Dubai. I've never flown Emirates, so first time on Emirates is in their first class, right? I was like, oh, sky shower, gimmicky but fun, right? I can now make a story out of it. So it's I would personally chip in my own miles to pay for that flight because it's just so much more interesting than just taking a very tough overnight economy flight, right? I think if you can do this at scale, this is quite a good offering for a lot of founders to be able to have that flexibility too. On the way back, same situation. After a full day of meeting on Thursday, I flew Etihad business class flight, also a miles redemption through Air France Miles, which is all Singapore airline. All MaxMiles transferable partners. I think on the way over, it was Qantas points, which is also transferable by MaxMiles. Etihad fly overnight, business class. So the morning I can just go to the office directly. Actually flew directly taxi into the office, start working. So actually save the company a lot of time by doing it that way, right? Then we get a lot of business, really valuable sessions out of my immediate being on the ground, sharing my learnings from Saudi to the team on a Friday right after this, right? So I think it can save a lot of time and effort. So that's why I created this community, now another community-driven approach to say, hey, Miles for Founders. Some founders needs a lot of encouragement, community help. to start it on this journey of making it easy, right? Because the goal is not to like just over engineering this and spending tons of time that
50 credit cards.
no, but you take the
Maybe like
just
5.
take the best out of my experience. Don't copy everything. Don't want
Well, you know what? If anything, after I attended the meetup last week, I actually applied to get the women's card from
Wonderful.
DVS just because my partner was like, "You spend so much on online shopping, like you really should be maximizing it." And so you got one person who took one action because of the community event that you had.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe. This was a fun conversation, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, see you.
Okay.